Hey, what is up everybody? Welcome to today's live stream. A little bit different today of what we do usually on the live stream if you're often here watching our shows. Well, today we have a lot of epic stuff coming up. We also have our experts from Intel, because this is also in partnership with Intel, and we also have the founder of renderbaron joining us with a lot of epic animation and design shows and showreels and live demonstrations. And we also have was very friendly from our friends from Intel to provide you guys with a i9-10900K CPU. So you can win that alongside with multiple of today's Steam wallet codes to be given away. So go to msi.com/do/insider, or just keep an eye out on the chat, because there our bot will also regularly distribute the link to the giveaway. The more actions you perform there, the more chances you will have at winning one of today's Steam wallet codes. And also, somewhere along the live stream, we will announce the winner of the i9-10900K CPU. Not sure when yet. I'll probably just watch what Eric is doing, if he wants to draw some winners, and then pop up, we'll have the winner. So stay tuned. And later today, we'll also show you many products that we have. If you're looking into getting into content creation, you can make sure to see, hey, what fits your taste best, what's going to suit your workflow. You can ask many questions, because we have experts from Intel coming. We have Camille and Alexander from Intel, and we also have Mark from renderbaron coming. So, many experts today in the show. And if you have any questions, make sure to tune in and hop in. So right now, I think I'm going to introduce our first guest, Camille Guzik from Intel. And later, follow up will be his colleague, Alexander. Hello, Camille.
Hi. How are you doing?
Doing great. Because a lot of exciting stuff today, so I'm really looking forward to it, and also to broaden my own knowledge, since you guys are really the experts from Intel. So maybe introduce yourself to the public.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Hello,
First of all, on behalf of Intel Corporation, I would like to welcome all of you on our today's webinar. Thank you for finding time at the beginning of this year. It's actually a public holiday in Poland, so I'm dialing from the public holiday here. We've got a great event planned. We will hear from the first hand from the world-renowned designer, animator, and the founder of and the CEO of renderbaron, Mark Potocznik. Our friends from MSI are hosting the event, so thank you very much for that. And they will also show us some of the great platforms purpose-built for creators. And also, and this is how we will start, we've got a handful of computer experts from Intel on as well. It's myself, Camille Guzik, industry technical specialist with Intel, located out of Gdańsk, Poland. And we are lucky to also have Alex Erdman, our guest from USA, talking to us directly from California, from the division.
Yeah.
And yes, this is a great opportunity to ask questions and get advice on a number of topics.
All right, guys. So many people from many parts of the world today, all here presenting to you. So let's have some fun now.
Yeah, let's move to the slide number 2. Hey, so look, I would like to firstly say that Intel as a company is very much inspired by you creators, and actually by all creators, whether these are photographers, digital artists, videographers, and doesn't matter what type of beginners or experts you are, all of you, from beginners to the experts, and actually everyone in between. And what is the most admirable for us is that all of you are in tireless pursuit of a vision. There is an idea you'd like to express, and you don't really stop until you get there. And we are proud to be actually inspired by you and challenged to provide you with better tools, and also to improve those tools every year for you to push boundaries of your work, and for us to push boundaries of the technology. And creativity and compute. Well, we are well aware that the creative process happens across a bunch of different platforms, actually. and we realized that you do a lot of content capture on the mobile phone, for example. You can do a lot of editing in the field with notebooks and mobile form factor PCs. Then you may have desktops and workstations to do more complicated and workload heavy mastering and rendering. And some of you may even be working with cloud-based solutions today. And I would say we are embracing the fact that this creation is happening on all of those different platforms. And from Intel's perspective, our vision is to enable you with this seamless workflow as you transition across those different devices. And our goal is to provide more productivity for you and opportunity to deliver new types of immersive, creative content that you do every day. But what does that all mean? We've been learning a lot about creators, and we've been doing a lot of research, and we really want to convey to people that we are not guessing. There is a lot of data that has been analyzed. We are trying to understand all different sorts of user personas, for example, from hobbyists to commercial power users, creative professionals. We are working to understand tasks and workflows that users take on, actually starting from 2D design to social broadcasting, video production, professional 3D animation. But what really is very interesting to us is what are those main pain points that creators are experiencing today, and what are those bottlenecks and obstacles that are standing in the way of creator. And it can be anything that actually steals this creative time primarily. And our goal is to enable the most creative time possible and have people struggle less with this overhead and all of the logistics around. And what can it be? For sure, performance and responsiveness issues, but also, for example, worries about data movement and integrity. And we hear stories about creators doing like 10 different copies before they go into the creative time. And I know that many people are concerned about losing the data, for example. And we've been taking those inputs and analyzing them and trying to understand how can we improve those by enabling not only hardware but also software capabilities to the platform. And creator workflows and workloads. At Intel, we are perceiving creators from two aspects, workflow and workload. And some of those aspects will be shown by Mark Potocznik today during his presentation. But Alex Erdman, Intel expert in the Client Computing Group business unit in the US, our actually division, will help or will tell you a bit more about our approach before we see Mark and his appearance. Alex, over to you.
Yeah, sure thing. Hey, thanks, Camille. And hey, thanks to MSI folks for having us here. This is really exciting to be here. My name is Alex. I've been working on creator-oriented hardware at Intel for several years now. I'm just one person in a broader team of folks that are really focused on this. And to Camille's point, our goal here is really to provide folks more time, more opportunity to be creative, and we really are trying to to gather a whole bunch of insights and build platforms and partner with folks like MSI to build products that are tailor-made for creators. This is super exciting for me because I remember a lot of the MSI products you're going to see here today. I remember when they were, just demo units in non-disclosure suites at Computex. So now to see this stuff kind of come to fruition and to be publicly available is super exciting. So as Camille mentioned, one of the things we're really trying to kind of shift the context when we think about creators and creation usages to looking at end-to-end workflows as opposed to just individual workloads. And part of the reason is we often hear people try and quantify the performance of a device for creation in terms of like how quickly it performs one specific task, like importing a bunch of photos or rendering some 3D content. But we all know that it's really not one task that represents the work that you have to do. It's this whole end-to-end series of steps. And so our goal is to optimize each one of those steps. So on the next slide, we've built kind of just a generic high-level workflow. Like if you take a media flow, for example, whether it's photo or video, and you can see that oftentimes we talk about, when you hear about video, we talk about, well, people talk a lot about encoding or rendering, but if you back up from that, there's a whole bunch of other work that has to, other steps that have to take place first. So, first of all, you've got to get the system booted up. You've got to get your, your app, your favorite app loaded up, whether that's, Premiere or Resolve or Magix or the likes. You got to get your project started, content imported. As you all know, just merely getting content into the system may involve its own kind of transcoding process. And now, finally, after all that stuff, you're in the creative flow, the kind of active creation process. You're making some edits, doing all the stuff you want to do, and then perhaps collaborating with other creators, sharing content back and forth before you really get to the final product that you want to master. So we've at Intel been looking a lot at this workflow. It's like, okay, how do we optimize this, right? I mean, how can we get better? Because if you look at if you look at the blue boxes that I've highlighted there, that's like active creation time. That's when you as the artist are actually doing something. The rest of it is pretty much overhead, right? Think about all the time it takes to get things started and all the time it takes to get things wrapped up and get your content ready to be shipped. So the blue portion's relatively small. So, if you go to the next slide, we'll talk about what success looks like for Intel. And it's really about, we know that
Alexander. So sorry, before I continue, maybe a comment or maybe answer, because we see Dikinem is asking or maybe rather a comment saying he is already a gamer and he really appreciates that Intel has the better option at gaming and even in workload, how you guys are managing such an efficient workflow and efficient performance.
Sorry, I guess I'm. What is it? What's a specific question about how to move back and forth between?
Well, I think what he's
or?
really asking is about how Intel is keeping up with such an efficient performance, both in gaming and also in productivity.
Yeah, I think it it goes back to some fundamental aspects of our platform design where we have great great single-threaded performance for things like game and lightly threaded workflows like games where you get really high frequencies to drive the frame rates you guys are looking for. We have pretty good multi-threaded performance when it comes to computational stuff like batch processing a lot of photos or videos, and then we've got great features like our video encode and decode. We have dedicated engines for hardware accelerated video encoding. Which obviously helps when you're doing video workloads, live broadcasting.
Yeah. A lot of R&D in that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny we think about it sometimes. It just goes to show you how complex all these different things are and how many moving pieces there are to go address one specific usage, and then trying to go address several usages in one platform is always a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like the Kingdom just replied saying, yes, we got the question correct, and thanks for the easy answer so everybody can understand.
Yeah, cool. So, on this slide, really, if you build out this slide, there's one more thing here. So, what is success for us? Obviously, you can't. There's no way to eliminate these kind of overhead steps in the process. But our goal at Intel is really to shrink the overhead as much as possible and give people more time to be creative. And number one, it's great for folks that are professionals. Obviously, you have deadlines to meet, content to deliver. So the quicker you can get through your work, the quicker you can get on to the next job. Which obviously affects things like revenue. But also, it also gives you more time to explore new types of art and new types of creativity, and explore new techniques and tools that you may not have otherwise had the chance to do. So shrinking this gray stuff, this overhead, expanding the blue part of this workflow, this active creation, super important for us. And we're really focused there because we know that that's really when you look at how the user perceives system performance, that's really what counts. I mean, if you think we could spend a lot of time optimizing rendering performance, for example, and you can just throw a whole bunch of cores at rendering. But if we talk to a lot of folks and they say, yeah, when I'm done with my project and I go to render it, I click the button and I walk away. I may go get a cup of coffee, or I go home for the night, or I go home for the weekend. So optimizing for that point and spending all your energy there when the user is not actually in front of the machine at that time is probably not necessarily the best our efforts. So our goal is really to optimize the active creation part of the workflow.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. So I think just real quickly before we get to market, we wanted to cover a couple of key technologies and ingredients in our platforms that we think are particularly interesting for creators.
Yes, and I think I will take this part. Thank you, Alex.
All right. We're back to Camille.
Yes.
Yeah, Eric's a little busy with the chat.
When we look at
there we go. All right.
When we look at technologies and the platforms, what we are actually focused on here is eliminating the overhead and enabling new types of creativity, new formats, mediums, new techniques, actually. And as we know, Intel makes great processors. We have decades of experience there. But from a solutions perspective, we've evolved from just processors to delivering the entire platform with like a full complement of important features. And connectivity and I/O, for example, may be one of the examples. And here connectivity features like Thunderbolt and Wi-Fi 6 for fast data transfer and getting your data in and out from the platform efficiently and seamlessly. We've also started delivering graphics, new types of graphics technologies beyond just 3D and display, but also accelerators, as Alex said, for video encoding and decoding. You might be, for example, familiar with Intel QuickSync video technology here. And the last thing which is super crucial, and it's actually very interesting, display. As display is very critical these days, and don't forget it's the primary interface between the creator and their PC. And while Intel doesn't make displays themselves, we've partnered extremely closely with the entire PC industry on delivering better display technologies. And we work with LCD panel vendors, backlight suppliers, IC suppliers, integrators, and we've actually been leading an industry with work group in VISA called Display HDR, with the goal of delivering better displays with high dynamic range, also partnering with MSI, with wide color gamut and better accuracy. And if we move on, let's do a bit of a deeper dive into some of the technologies. And first one will be Thunderbolt. And let's take Thunderbolt to the workshop. When we look at Thunderbolt 4 advantages, Thunderbolt 4 is an amazing technology that Intel has been evolving with the industry for several years, and you might be familiar with it from the good old days when mainly Apple was using this interface. It's Intel's high bandwidth external interface with a variety of use cases, not only connecting displays, but also other peripherals, storage devices, etc., and at the same time providing power delivery too. We believe if you have an outlook of looking for a new platform soon, we think you should consider it having Thunderbolt these days, either Thunderbolt 3 or Thunderbolt 4. USB 3, as you might know, is becoming insufficient these days, especially for the new capture devices, storage devices, etc. And I have an example for you. Media file sizes are growing super exponentially. Actually, 8K red code raw video is approaching 500 gigs per hour, and it makes 2-hour content transferred via USB 3.1, which is 10 gigabits per second bandwidth interface in 12 minutes versus Thunderbolt, which is 40 in 3 minutes, which makes it like 67% faster, which is a great difference. And also, media users can leverage Thunderbolt attached NAS storage, for example, for direct editing, collaboration, connectivity, and others. And if we look at some of the ideas of Thunderbolt for creators, there are a few devices that we can recommend here. And we know that folks in the creator industry are using NAS storage devices that are Thunderbolt attached, but also fast SSDs based on Thunderbolt. There are also very interesting audio and video capture devices. So if you're looking or if you are working in the recording and live production industry, it might be very compelling to you. And there also are some options to add, for example, 10 gig Ethernet support in your local access network with Thunderbolt, actually.
Hey, Camille, this is Alex. I just want to jump in real quick. So I just want, this, I think you've covered it really well. I think this just is like Thunderbolt is super exciting. I think particularly, if you're a creator, just the amount of flexibility it provides. You mentioned a couple times, using a NAS attached for editing. We know a lot of people that are editing directly off their NAS. Multiple, PC platforms plugged into a single NAS. It allows super fast collaboration. It eliminates the need to transfer files back and forth. And then, to your point on other things like some of these capture devices, it was traditionally very hard to get media and live content into the PC. You had to have, you had to use desktop PCs with large, PCI capture cards that went to a breakout box and all these cables and everything. And today it's super simple. You can do this on a notebook if you want to, something like MSI's Creator 17. It's a single wire, and you get access to a really high bandwidth interface. So, all this stuff we're talking about here, coupled with the ability to connect displays, I think Thunderbolt is super compelling for a lot of creator workflows.
And actually,
Sorry,
not only Thunderbolt, also graphics and AI and display. And I think you will be the best person to address those points. All right, so we can move straight on to graphics and AI.
Sure thing. We won't spend a lot of time on AI, but I just wanted to touch on it. AI is...
Sorry, guys, before you move on to AI, maybe there's a good question in the chat regarding Thunderbolt. Like, how is it really different from USB 4, or what will the difference be?
The difference is I'd say, the certified ecosystem of devices, it's Thunderbolt devices all go through a rigorous certification process. You're guaranteed to get connectivity and to get the bandwidth and the throughput, and you're guaranteed that the device is going to enumerate every time. And I think that's to me that's super compelling. Even if on paper, it's from a bandwidth perspective, on paper they're the same. I think to me there's power in having the product being embraced by Thunderbolt. So Thunderbolt certification process is a rigorous process and involves Intel and many other partners, but it's all about interoperability and guaranteed compatibility.
Right. So you can maybe more or less also expect more consistency and reliability there.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for people that are in kind of I'll call it mission critical workloads or workflows where you're a creator and you're a professional and you depend on these devices to get your job done. I don't think you can afford not to have that reliability.
Yeah, right. All right. Sorry for the interruption. Thanks for the answer.
No problem. Yeah, sure. No, it's a very good question, and it's one
we
also
have people in the chat saying Thunderbolt is being really useful, especially when they have like all the large contents and. Well, also there's a follow-up question, like where can we find like a list of Thunderbolt certified products? Is there such a list?
There is, and there's a website. I'm blanking on the specific URL, but we can probably find it and put it in the chat here in a minute. I believe it's thunderbolttechnology.org, but
.net, actually.
.net. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I knew it was not .com. Yep, thunderbolttechnology.net.
So thunderbolttechnology.net.
/products.
And then /products.
Has to go.
Yeah. So Eric is working on that, and once he found the website, he will drop that to you guys in the chat. Cool. Seems like we found it. All right. So yeah, the link is coming in the chat, and sorry guys, you can continue.
Yeah, sure thing. Let's just briefly touch on graphics and AI, and then we'll talk about displays. And then I think really the goal here is to turn it over to Mark. From an AI standpoint, AI is becoming ubiquitous these days. Everyone's talking about AI and how that impacts various facets of computing and workloads that we do, tasks that we do. So from a content creation perspective, at Intel, I just want to be clear that our focus is really how do we leverage AI to simplify things that are complex, eliminate tasks that are tedious, some of that overhead that we were talking about earlier. Our goal is not necessarily to figure out how we use AI to replace, the creative process or replace creativity. So it's kind of a high level one to set the stage there. There's a bunch of different AI compute technologies that we offer, and I'm not going to go into details on every one. We've got accelerated CPU-based instructions like our Intel Deep Learning Boost. We call it VNNI. On the graphics, it's also VNNI, but it's a different type of infrastructure called DP4A, and then we have some infrastructures for real-time speech and audio processing, our Gaussian and neural accelerator, as part of our audio pipeline. So all of those things, combined, allow us to support a lot of neat use cases. You're starting to see some of this stuff get lit up in a lot of the creative apps, like Adobe's doing auto reframe in Premiere, things like subject select in Photoshop. We've been showing for a couple of years now Cyberlink and others doing AI style transfer, where you can take your video and make it look like a Van Gogh painting. And there's a whole bunch of other upscaling features, ray tracing and denoising. If you're looking at our open image denoise and other libraries like that. So bottom line is a lot of cool stuff going on in AI. A lot of great ways to enhance the creative process and your output. But that's where we see AI.
All right. It seems like Thunderbolt has really got people fired up, because we had another question coming in regarding, maybe you cannot even comment on this yet, but we'll see. So he's asking Max Bunny, what are the future goals for Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt development? Maybe lower output power and higher transfer rates, or shortwave, or even wireless transmission?
So Thunderbolt's not my area of expertise, so I don't have any insight on next generation physical infrastructure. But I do know that there are cool things planned for Thunderbolt in the future, and there's definitely a team of people working hard to evolve it to an even better interface. So I guess I'll leave it at that. More to come. But Thunderbolt I think has a bright future.
All right, definitely understandable. We also have another one commenting from YouTube saying, from my own experience, OpenVINO provide the most convenience for AI developer. Guess that might be also something that you can comment on, or?
Was there a specific question about? So OpenVINO is a toolkit that Intel provides. To software developers that want to leverage a deep learning model framework. I guess so it's interesting. It's more developer focused. I don't.
Definitely. So I
guess I'm trying to figure out how to.
That's also what he's trying to say. I guess like he also thinks that it's the most convenient one for AI developers specifically.
Oh, cool! That is awesome to hear that.
Good stuff. All right, so I guess I'm not going to hold you up. So I'm going to try to scroll through the chat to see if there are any more good stuff in there.
Okay.
All right, seems right. We're good for now.
Cool. So the last thing we wanted to touch on before we toss it over to Mark is just briefly touch on displays and visual quality. I think Camille teed this up at the beginning, but like the display is really your primary interface to the machine. It's also your primary interface to your work, right? Whether it's media you've captured outside photos and videos, or it's 3D content that you're creating on your PC. So display is super critical. This is an area that I'm extremely passionate about. I think a lot of us at Intel are. It's a lot of cool things happening in displays. So a couple things I just want to touch quickly on like resolution versus dynamic range and color. We often get asked like, hey, when are we getting more resolution, or can we get more resolution? The industry progressed pretty rapidly. Remember in late 80s, early 90s, we had VGA resolution of screens, and we quickly got to high definition 1080p, and then beyond that QHD, and then obviously 4K has been around for a couple of years now, and been somewhat mainstream for a couple of years. And people always, when I'm talking to folks at work and in the industry, they always, well, when are we going to get more more resolution? When's 8K coming? And 8K is cool, particularly if you're if you're looking at TVs and large screens. Some screen size that's above 30 to 32 inches per se. But getting a higher resolution in a computer-sized panel, whether it's a desktop monitor or a notebook, doesn't necessarily buy you a whole lot. From an experience standpoint and an ability to create better content. So one of the things we're super interested in is actually high dynamic range and getting wider color gamut, because that's something that even on a QHD or a 4K panel can drastically change your experience as a creator, and also the kind of content you deliver for your end users. So I don't know if folks on the stream are familiar. This topic on displays gets super scientific real quickly. There's a lot of great content out on the internet. I'll point you to one place here when we're done. But when we talk about different color spaces, like Adobe RGB versus sRGB versus DCI P3, and eventually VT 2020. So if you look at these different color spaces on a spectrum, we're progressively getting larger and larger, more and more color coverage of the red, green, and blue primaries. And the interesting thing about this is you're starting to get basically a wider range of colors you can display. So having panel technology that supports wider color gamut, and display pipelines that support moving from 8-bit color to things like 10-bit color and beyond. We're going from being able to produce a couple million colors on your screen to being able to produce 1 billion colors, which is pretty impressive, right? And it really it makes things really lifelike. Again, whether that's realistic content you've captured or artificial content you've created.
Most definitely, yeah. We also agree.
So,
just to jump in there with what you said, also to the streamers, the viewers out there, like if they know how important this is definitely something very important. The color spaces, the accuracy, and the wide range of the color palette, and that's also why we also try to really focus on this from our end too, from the monitor point of view, to really try to uphold this standard to really provide the most accurate and the kind of display with the accuracy that you want to have as a creator for yourself and also for your end product. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully you guys are going to show some of that when you talk about your products a little bit later. But things like your Creator 17 are just absolutely stunning. The ability to get an extremely vibrant display in a notebook like that is quite impressive. So that brings me to my last point, right? It's like it's not just color space and how much color you can produce, but it's also, we talk a lot about dynamic range, the ratio of the darkest blacks to the brightest whites on the screen, and being able to have a wide range there will also make all those colors look more vibrant. So you hear a lot about HDR, and it's predominantly quantified in how much peak luminance you can produce. So you hear things like HDR 400 typically means 400 nits is the brightest your panel can go. HDR 1000 is 1000 nits, so on. But there's a lot of other stuff that goes on there. So there's the ability to produce bright light, but there's also the ability to make the panel very dim. So there's some technologies like local dimming, where you basically take the backlight of the display and segment it into many different areas, and you can actually dynamically turn off the backlight in portions of the screen where the pixels are supposed to be dark. So that gives you very dark pixels in one area and very bright pixels in another area, and between the two you've created this really high dynamic range, and that's pretty amazing. So there's a lot of great content out there. If you go to displayhdr.org, that's the consortium that's the project that's run by VESA. A lot of great technical content there. You can go see a list of all the certified products, including the MSI stuff you're going to see today. And I think the display thing is super cool. There's a lot of extremely smart people working on display HDR. So, and then just to close that piece, so getting back to this context of workflows, on this next slide we're looking at, so this is one of the things we've been thinking about. Is like, okay, how do we actually build an end-to-end HDR workflow? It's one thing to have just HDR panels and display HDR content, and if you're just super easy, right? You get HDR enabled games, you get an HDR panel, and you're done. But in the content space, you've got all these different things you have to worry about. First of all, was the source content I captured in HDR, and then do I have an ability to manipulate it, edit it, and then store it? And for a period there, that wasn't true. We didn't have all those different pieces of the puzzle. But Intel's been working really hard with different facets of the ecosystem, to put that together. So this slide kind of looks across different types of work, like photo, video, and then 3D stuff. So if you think about like photography, for example, a lot of people don't know this, but content that we've been capturing for several years on digital SLR cameras, particularly in RAW, is capable of actually a high dynamic range. Right, there's more than 8 bits of color information there, often more than 10. One of the things we haven't been able to do with photography is actually edit those photos in 10-bit, but I think the software ecosystem is working on that. And the other thing we couldn't do was store more than 8 bits worth of color information. So JPEG was limited to 8 bits. Earlier last year, JPEG XL was announced, which supports up to 16-bit color. So that's super cool. So you can see where you start to bring these pieces together. So all of that stuff, the right capture devices with the right editing tools, the right file formats, now coupled with these displays we're talking about that are built into a lot of these MSI platforms. Now you're starting to really deliver an end-to-end workflow for HDR. Video is a little bit easier. Video, there's a lot of great, obviously, tools and file formats that exist in the video space. And now we're even starting to see HDR come about in 3D. So perhaps Mark can touch on that a little bit when he talks about his work in Cinema 4D. But I think just to close there, a lot of work going into actually making HDR a reality and bringing all the pieces together so that you can actually work with and deliver HDR content.
Exactly.
So,
and also a lot of work to deliver technologies and platforms that empower creators to do more, do faster, and do their thing efficiently. Right, Alex? So we've learned about I/O and connectivity, graphics and AI, display and visual quality. But before we move on, I saw a couple of questions. There were actually 11th gen topics mentioned a couple of times. So guys, hang on. CES is close, and you can expect some more details and data getting to you quite soon. There was also a direct question about the difference between 10th gen these days, 10 core count and 8 core count in the 11th gen. Yes, the answer is yes. Cores are more powerful, and especially on single-threaded performance. And also, it's been like 5 years since we didn't update the architecture to the extent that we updated it these days. So yeah, hang tight, and there will be news very soon. And there was a question about Thunderbolt 4 comparing to Thunderbolt 3 and external GPU speeds. I would say that for Thunderbolt 4, certification is more strict, and the minimal requirements are stricter, so higher, and so to say. And there is a possibility that external GPUs will work faster, but on the bandwidth side, it remains 40 gigabits per second. So that would be the answer. And yeah, about delivering technologies and platforms, I guess we closed the topic for today. But before we move on, I would like to wrap up finding the best system for your workflow. I would say whether it's a workstation, desktop, or mobile, we surely have a product for you all, creators. And starting from i7 and i9, which we recommend for the most balanced performance on desktop. And while we are going up the stack, there is also Xeon Portfolio, which was actually recently refreshed with some new SKUs. So if you're looking for performance and ECC memory in particular, Xeon Trademark is definitely your place to go. Xeon E, Xeon W, Xeon D, but also Xeon Scalable, taken straight from the data-centric platforms. And if you require mobility, our H SKUs are recommended. And in high-end desktop, of course, K, so unlocked, and X SKUs. This is what we recommend here. Do not forget to make your creator PC equipped with Thunderbolt 3 or 4. Look for VISA certified display HDR displays to get the best experience out of your PC. And obviously, if you need any assistance, please team up with our authorized partners in your regions, and they will surely help you get the PC, the creator PC you desire. And actually, it brings us to the end of the presentation today. I hope you learned something from us, and I've already downloaded Mark's workflow, and I'm looking forward to his session very soon. So thank you for the attention, and over to Ja and then Mark.
Yeah.
Potocznik.
All right, so definitely a lot of very, very good insights from our experts from Intel. And well, guys, if you still have anything to add or to ask, now is the time to do it, because otherwise, well, our Intel friends are going to go on about their days. So we're going to give you a few seconds to think about that. In the meantime, yeah, Camille and Alexander, definitely thank you so much for your time, and also for you guys to you know, providing a i9 10900K for us to be giving away to you guys, the viewers. Very, very thankful for that. Awesome for you guys. So let's see if there's any questions, additional ones in the chat for you. Well, Max Bunny is saying, well, don't really have a question, but just a statement. Well, keep being awesome. And
well, thanks, guys. We appreciate it, and yeah, I'd say thank you. It's this core group of users and enthusiast folks that kind of keep us motivated and keep us pushing and driving new technologies. So super excited to be here. Super excited to get your feedback anytime. And Ja, really thanks for having us. If you ever want us to come back and have a deep dive discussion on maybe one particular thing at a time, happy to round up some experts from Intel.
Oh yeah, I think I'll definitely be knocking on your doors, so don't worry about that. Good stuff. Okay, guys, then
thanks, guys.
I guess, thank you for your time, and hopefully see you soon again in the near future. All right. So guys, I think you guys definitely learned a lot. I mean, even for us, it was very helpful and insightful, the information that we got from Intel, and what they're going through, what they're thinking about, processing and stuff. But now it's time for us to switch up. But before I introduce my next guest, I think we're going to do some giveaways, because it has been a while. So I'm looking at Eric to see how many winners he wants to draw right now. And he's going to draw one winner for our Steam wallet code giveaway. Seems like there's been quite a few people who joined. And the winner is Rocka68. And Rocka68, congratulations. Hope you're gonna have a lot of fun with it, because even if you're a content creator on Steam, there are quite some editing software to be downloaded for your convenience. There's Vega and there's Blender and stuff like that. So yeah, whatever you want to do with it, hope you have fun. Actually, Eric did draw a second winner. His name is X. I mean, like X, so like executable file. So X, EXE. Congratulations. And for you too, hope you have fun with Steam Wallet Code and do something nice with it. And for the rest of you guys, you can still join. Just go to amstead.com/2/insider or go to the direct link in the chat that our bot drops regularly. And make sure to tune in for the royalty points, because the more often you join our live streams, the more loyalty points you have, and you can also turn those in to have a better chance at winning. And of course, there is still the i9 10900K to be given away today. So if you haven't registered for that, you can still do, because we'll randomly announce the winner somewhere along in the stream. And hope you guys tuned in and have fun. Hope somebody is going to be receiving that CPU. And well, it seems like there is some issue with the URL in Twitch, but the bot has already fixed it. So right now there should be no problem anymore. So just keep an eye out on the chat for the link, and the issue is solved. All right. Now I think we're going to continue to our second guest, or third, if you look at it this way. So we have the CEO and the founder of Studio Renderbaron joining us with a lot of animation and design epicness to show you guys. So we're going to welcome him, and our director Eric is trying to fix some live issues. And as you guys know, if you have watched our show, it is live. So there's always something that's going to go wrong, because some stuff just decides to act strangely, just like now. So you see Mark going big and small, and there he is. Because obviously he is not here, right? Because due to Corona, we can't really invite people into the studio. So yeah, we have Mark joining from his own studio in Germany. So hello, Mark.
Hello, Charles. Thanks for having me.
All right, really looking forward to your stuff, man. So yeah, I'm gonna leave the introduction up to you, of course. So yeah, get it on.
Great, thank you. So let's get kidding. Thank you for having me here, Intel, MSI. I'm very happy to be part of such a great lineup. And yeah, today I'm going to show hopefully to show some magic. And the big question after all the stuff we heard is, we heard a lot of cool technical stuff. And the big question is now how to squeeze out the very essence of it in a creative way, how to get the creation out of that hard and software, all the technology that we just heard from. And yeah, that's your job as a creator. You feel the need to create something cool. You stand up in the morning and go to your office or to your studio and you want to create something cool. And that's the thing we're talking about today, being creative in the truest sense of the word. So you observe your environment, your surroundings, and you ask yourself maybe, how do I create the surface of that apple maybe, or the reflective behavior of that cup maybe, and how do I do that maybe even procedurally without touching one single pixel bitmap? And we're going to find out about this today. So I'm going to share my desktop right now.
Spoken like a true content creator and designer.
Thank you. So
all right, Eric is doing some magic with Mark, and he's going to reappear in just a second. I hear Eric signing.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. Mark, you can just keep on talking. We were prepared for this kind of stuff. It's part of the game, right? We love seeing this kind of stuff. The chat loves it too.
As long as you can see and hear me, everything's good.
It's all fine.
Cool. So we will go ahead now. My name is Mark, as I already introduced myself. My studio is called renderbaron, and it's focused on visualization, visual effects, and TV commercials. It's located in Germany, the most western part of Germany, at the beautiful River Rhine. And my studio was founded by myself in 2001. And yeah, the focus is visualization, visual effects, and TV commercials. And by the way, I'm also a trainer. I'm training Maxon Cinema 4D. I am a Maxon master trainer, focused on shading, lighting, and rendering. And therefore, my studio is also a Maxon authorized training
Sounds
center.
very complicated.
So, yeah, Yeah, you can learn cool stuff at my place or online. I will come back to that later.
So guys,
for now, let's have
pay
a look
attention.
at the showreel. For now, let's have a look at the showreel 2020, please.
Just in between, somebody really loves to quote you to create something cool.
So the showreel should come up now.
Yeah, it's been up. Wow. All right. Seems like, well, that was an awesome showreel. We also have people in the chat saying, you know, you already have fans. Maybe he has already always been fans, saying that you are like his idol creator and designer. And a lot of people commenting on just how realistic everything was. It was really awesome and interesting. Yeah, keep it coming, guys. We appreciate it. I guess Mark will appreciate that too. Let him know.
Yeah, thanks for the warm words and for the warm welcome. So today's talk is about how to squeeze out the creativity of all the technical stuff we heard about. It's about imagination becoming reality. And this talk is also titled Apollinaris Straße in German, a workload I recently created last year for Intel. And this workload is the subject of the minutes we will spend together. But first off, before we do that, let us have a brief excursion on the term of realism. What is realism? Realism is, in the first place, highly subjective. That means it's depending on the era you're living in. If you're living in the present times or you live in the past somewhere in the Middle Ages maybe, and it's most of all based on your habits of perception. So let's have a quick example from, let's say, the history of arts. Here we have a painting from Michelangelo Caravaggio from 1599. And this painting, The Calling of St. Matthew, is considered to be highly realistic at that time because he introduced something revolutionary. Caravaggio introduced the art of chiaroscuro painting, meaning the art of playing with contrasts, painting with contrasts, with very bright areas, with very dark areas. And you can see it here in this painting, The Calling of St. Matthew. There's light coming from the upper right side and is guiding your eye where to look at. And that's the revolutionary thing about it. Caravaggio invented the art of directing with light. So he's an influence still for today's directors and photographers. And the next example is a few years later from Johannes Vermeer from the Netherlands. And what's so fascinating to me about that painting is the Milkmaid. The fascinating thing is the masterly diffuse light in the background, the diffuse light on the fabric of her clothes. And most of all, this is not a saint, not a king, not a knight, no flying spaghetti monster. It's a woman doing everyday work. So why would you depict something like that in that times? Because to level up your level of realism. And that's the thing. Vermeer introduced everyday scenes, and by that raises the level of realism. So that's also a thing, depicting something from your everyday surrounding, your everyday environment. The Milkmaid, a very fascinating painting to my mind. Let's take a huge leap forwards to the 1970s, where David T. Kessler painted that painting, End of Roll Vacation Slide. It was part of a series of a few paintings. And if you have a closer look at the stone plates on the floor, you might get the idea that this might be painted, maybe acrylic on canvas. Or if you look at the bouquet or the diffuse foggy elements in the background, they might be airbrushed. But all in all, it's a very realistic, maybe photograph from some boring guys in their 1770 clothes standing in front what seems to me to be the Niagara. But the most fascinating element and the most realistic element of that painting is these artifacts here on the right side. There are artifacts from overexposure, artifacts from maybe errors you don't want to have in your image. So overexposures at the end of your analog film roll. And by that, he also raises the level of realism, showing everyday scenes like Vermeer with the Milkmaid, but also introducing analog artifacts and destroying your image partly in order to get your level of realism more and more up. Jumping to present times, here we have a painting from Johannes Vermeer from Sweden. You can follow him on johanneswestmark.se. I said Johannes Vermeer. I mean Johannes Westmark from Sweden. He's painting Vitamin C here. And what's so fascinating for me about that guy is it's just a guy with a paintbrush doing photorealism. And that's fantastic work in terms of perfection, in terms of observing your environment, observing your model, or maybe the photo you're painting from, and transferring that to the technique that you're good at. And that's the point we will talk about in a few minutes, transferring the things you see to the tool you're good at. Let's transfer all the things we heard so far to the another branch, visual effects for film. So it's more our branch, that realism is depending on the area you're living in and your habits of perception. Let's have a look at visual effects for film. So here we have a making of Walking with Dinosaurs, a production from Framestore and BBC from back in 1999. And at that time, these creatures, the dinosaurs, were considered to be highly realistic, even photorealistic. You wouldn't see that from today's point of view anymore. So it's the same with the creatures from Star Wars Episode 1 by ILM. You wouldn't consider them as perfectly photorealistic anymore today. So it's depending on the area you're living in and your habits of perception. And it's also depending on your cultural background. We have a good example for that. My grandma, my late grandma, and my early work from 2001. When I showed her that example, a landscape I did in 2001 with Cinema 4D Release 7 and Bryce 4, she asked me, where did you film this? So can we see the video, please? So the video has no audio, so Charlie have to tell me when it's gone.
Yeah, no worries, no problems. It's all right. We are through the video now. For 2001, it seems to be quite something.
Yeah, at that time maybe. Yeah, the era you're living in, literally.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's at that time it might have been considered as, let's say, semi-realistic, especially if you're not used to look at CGI. But 17 years later, I created this work for Intel, shown at SIGGRAPH 2018 in Vancouver. And can we have that video, please?
That's a big difference.
So the video's done, I guess.
Not yet, not yet. We're still enjoying.
Cool.
All right, now we're back.
Yeah, and you can see the huge difference in terms of realism between the 2001 work and the 2018 work. So the term of realism shifts every year, every now and then. It evolves with your own abilities to create. It evolves with your own abilities to be the master of your tools. And so it's depending on your cultural background. And while talking about my late grandma, it's also depending on your personal age. So it does matter if you grew up with the visual effects from Gladiator by The Mill in 2000, or if you grew up with the overwhelming visual effects from Independence Day Resurgent from 2016 made by Scanline. So in terms of CGI, all of that, let's say, relativity leads us to the question, what are the ingredients to realism? How can I increase realism, or how does imagination become reality? And that's the title of today's talk, how does imagination become reality? And in terms of technical stuff, is there more to realism than just the render engine? And we will deep dive in that question in the next minutes. So back to the main topic, Apollinaris Street, imagination becomes reality. So let's take a look at the main topic of today's talk, a video I created for Intel in 2019. Please show the video.
All right, here we go.
Was filmst du denn da?
Nix. Licht.
All right. I think if you told us that this was a video recording, I would have put my money on it to say, yeah, that's true.
Thank you. That had been the intention, literally. Yeah, the intention of that project, created for Intel Corporation in 2019 by my studio, by me, was to create an animated still life in a found footage style. You know, shaky hand camera,
Yeah.
Real life character. And the technical background was to show off some Intel hardware, to benchmark a pretty fast CPU at that time, the Intel Xeon W3175X. And that was actually the hardware that project was created on. And there were also some requirements for the scene itself. It should be high poly count, have lots of objects, rough reflections, rough transparencies, all that sample related heavy stuff where you grow gray hair about and your render engine gets to sweat about. Yeah, there should be a certain RAM footprint as well. And all of that stuff should be done in Cinema 4D, Maxon Cinema 4D, and it should be rendered with the internal render engine, physical render, which is, by the way, accelerated by Intel Emery technology, but we will come back on that later.
We actually have some stuff in the chat for you, because someone is asking, have you worked on any film or movie projects to start with?
Television projects, a lot of television projects ranging from visual effects for TV shows and visualization for TV documentary. You can find it on my website, renderbaron.de.
Awesome. And apparently you have blown too many minds, because everybody is confused saying, was that real? Was that not a video taken from a smartphone? How is it possible that it was not a movie? Too many.
Thank you for the warm words.
Hi, Oscar.
It was completely created in Cinema 4D. We will have a deep dive on that, how that was created in Cinema 4D right now.
All right.
Okay, so that was the first hardware specification. I created that scene on the W3175X from Intel with 28 physical cores at 3.1 gigahertz and some RAM and a nice GPU in it. But rendering took place on a CPU because the internal engines of Cinema 4D are CPU engines. So here's the machine standing around in my studio doing a nice Cinebench. By the way, I created the living room test scene for Maxon Cinebench. It's my work as well. Okay, so and here we have the constant clock speed of that baby, 3.72 gigahertz constantly without any bit of thermal throttling, though. So that's pretty cool with 28 physical cores and 56 logical cores. We have the Cinebench result release, Cinebench release 20, 13,000 points roughly. And yeah, there were some final hardware specs because that scene got revised in 2020, last year. So at least the last year was good for something, for revising that with even faster hardware. Yeah, an Intel dual Xeon Platinum 8280M, complicated term, with 2 times 28 cores at 2.7 gigahertz. Lots of RAM and a nice Nvidia Quadro RTX 5000. So let's have a look at that specs. Yeah, constant 2.95 gigahertz of rendering power. Here's the baby in my studio. And the Cinebench result release, Cinebench release 20 was pretty good, pretty impressive good, I'd say, almost 19,000 points. And yeah, transferred to Cinebench release 23, which is the most recent release of Cinebench, this baby has 48,000, roughly 48,000 Cinebench points. So it's really impressive and it's really strong and very reliable, this machine. So it's eating random buckets for breakfast, literally. Okay, by the way, I recently created a review video on that machine on my, or it should say youtube.com renderbaron, it's an error here, youtube.com renderbaron, then you see a review video of that machine. So, by the way, talking about a dual Xeon Platinum setup, this machine is extremely powerful, but it's also extremely expensive to buy. Look at that, 10,000 bucks per CPU. That's mind-blowing as well. So you might consider an alternative. The Xeon Gold CPU lineup from Intel is delivering an absolutely comparable rendering power, but at about a quarter of the price per CPU. So 2,700 bucks instead of 10,000. That's really a difference. You might consider that. Okay, back to topic. Imagination becomes reality in certain terms: modeling, shading, lighting, composition, rendering, and compositing. Let's step through these steps of a workflow, of a common 3D creation workflow, and begin with modeling. It's always a good idea to model from real-life reference, especially if you do organic things like vegetables or fruits. So here we have the model of the kitchen scene I recently showed you. And you see everything is just made up from polygons and light rays. And everything is done by hand. Everything is modeled from scratch. There are no library assets in here. Everything is done by myself. Here we have me sitting in front of the computer with real tomatoes, real branches of tomatoes, real leaves, and yeah, the CGI recreation on the computer screen, as well with the leaves, all of that being created in Cinema 4D from Maxon. So, when we talk about modeling, it is always a good idea to apply a high level of detail for your spectator's eye. But be aware, you shouldn't overdo it. You should guide your spectator's eye. Remember Caravaggio, how we directed the eye of the spectator with light? You should do that with details as well. So focus details in some areas while leaving other areas almost blank. Have a look. Here we have the kitchen scene, and it's pretty clear that there are, the focus of the spectator, of the audience, is the upper side of the furniture with all those items standing on, bottles, fruits, vegetables, what so. And this is guiding the eye. It is concentrating, it is directing the eye of the spectator. And even if we approach more closely, you can see that there are areas with almost no details here, such as maybe the upper side of the fridge or the cleaning machine. But there are also areas with a high level of detail, especially the branches of the tomato with all their tiny dots and hairs. You have even tiny fibers of dust going on the tomatoes once in a while, enhancing the level of detail. You can see it in the background with all those labels on the bottles and all those details going on in the background. You can see that the pores of the tangerines, of the apples, and so you're increasing the level of detail even with tiny dust fibers on the plate here, the stoneware plate, and other areas like on the ground here, in that case, are almost left blank. So you're directing the eye of the spectator. So you should not be afraid to do that. You should not have a horror vacui, what is called in history of arts, to leave areas blank. Look at that. That's a Baroque church in Italy, in Naples. The Chiesa Principale Certosa. Source is Wikipedia. And if you step in such a building, you're absolutely overwhelmed by detail. You don't know where to look at first. And that's irritating. It might be art, but it's irritating because artists at that time had a, let's say, religiously motivated fear of leaving areas blank. And you should not do that because Baroque is over, and you should concentrate details in one place and leave other areas almost blank. So let's have a live demo. I will leave PowerPoint for now, and we will have a look at Cinema 4D live at the hairs of a tomato. Here we are in Cinema 4D Release 23, the most recent release. And I will just navigate a little further and see what we have here. We have our tomatoes with those branches and those leaves. And if I activate that so-called cloners in the object manager of Cinema 4D, you can see there are tiny dots appearing. And these dots are representing tiny hairs being scattered across the branches. So I'm not sure how many of you are experienced with Cinema 4D, but in Cinema 4D we have an object called a cloner. And the cloner is cloning or scattering base objects across other objects' surfaces, if you want so. And in this case, it's just scattering tiny hairs across the branches of the tomato. Let's have a look what the hairs are made of. Let's have a look at the hair of a tomato. Here we are, just simple polygonal objects. And in the other scene, they are just scattered across these branches of a tomato. So the principle is quite simple. Just objects scattered, increasing details in one area while other areas are not so detailed. Going back to my presentation. Okay, so That's it for modeling. Let's head over to
Okay,
shading.
Mark, before you go,
How to create-
actually it's been piling up, but you know, there were a lot of people saying, you know, your presentation alone was already so interesting, they wanted a longer version of it, and now we just have more people keep saying like, you know, we want a longer presentation, you know, can you do a TED Talk or something? It's just really amazing, like yeah, what you're doing and presenting and how you're explaining it, yeah. So
Thank
many
you.
of these kind of comments. Surprisingly, not too many questions. I guess everybody's just being mesmerized.
Very cool. So I'm not quite sure how many times left for the presentation.
Well, we can still get it kicking for quite some time.
Cool. Okay, so I just go on.
Yeah, no worries. Eric will keep you informed.
Cool. Okay. So we will now talk about shading.
Hi,
How
Camso.
to... Pardon?
So, no, sorry, I was just talking to the chat.
Okay. So we now talk about how to create these surfaces, how to create these surface structures procedurally. And before we do so, we should dive into a tiny bit of theory of shading. What describes the behavior of light across an object from the brightest point to the darkest point is called a BSDF. It's a short for a very complex term, which is a bidirectional scattering distribution function. And yeah, and that is complicated, and I'm not good at math at all. I almost got kicked out of school because of that, but it's really simple to understand in principle, because a BSDF is just describing how light scatters from the brightest area to the darkest area of an object. And that can be told in different terms, in different mathematical terms, in functions, mathematical functions. And in Cinema 4D, we have basically two of those functions on board. One is called Lambert. It's perfect for everything shiny, everything mirroring, everything plastically. And the other one is called Orenaya. It's perfect for everything satinated, everything rough with microfacets on, like paper, human skin, or stonework maybe. And we have something on board that's called a BSS-RDF. It's even more complex. It's a bidirectional scattering surface reflection distribution function. You're getting tired by speaking about that. But the BSS-RDF is responsible for an effect you see when you put light behind your ear, or you put your hand in front of the sun, or you observe closely the light behavior of a fruit or vegetable. It's for scattering light inside the volume of an object. That's a BSS-RDF for. But the interesting thing here, you can see it in our preview here, it has also a diffuse component, meaning show me where I'm in the light, show me what color I have. You see that? Lambert and Orenaya are all telling, show me where I'm in the light. And BSS-RDF, normally responsible for scattering of light inside the volume, also has that diffuse, so-called diffuse component, show me where I'm in the light. I will come back to that when explaining the shading of the oranges to you. So, know your materials and know your BSDF and bring procedural shading to perfection. Pardon. So, what we can see here, there are a lot of different textures going on, a lot of different surfaces of objects. And we will now deep dive into an example here. The surface structure of this crispy, juicy apple. And it's, of course, CGI, completely CGI. And we will now have a live demo how to create this surface texture procedurally, just rule-based, without touching any photograph or any bitmap pixel. So it's now about shading an apple. I will go back to Cinema 4D. Here we go. So here we have a procedurally created shape of a base apple, and I will go into the material that's below here. Now we have the material editor of Cinema 4D open, And we will, for now, we just take care of the diffuse reflection, or what is called the albedo. This is hidden in the so-called color channel of the material. I will go in there, and there's a layer shader. And the layer shader is nothing but a container for several other shaders. So shaders are nothing else than small, simple programs defining certain rules, defining your object's surface. And inside that layer shader, inside that container, we have certain components here. The base component is a yellowish color, and above that we have a folder with some random looking noises going on, and these are masking a reddish color. And look what's happening now. We have a combination of 3 random noise structures here. They're looking like this or looking like that. All of that procedurally created, random looking, and that is creating a mask for a color. And if we step upwards and repeat these steps with different noises, different colors, different procedural structures, step by step, we will create a procedurally created apple surface texture for dots or for some streaks. And with some color gradients, we can define details at the poles of the apple, the North Pole or South Pole maybe. And with some more gradients, we create even more color variations towards the top of the apple. And in the end, we have a nice, juicy apple color here. Everything you've seen so far is rule-based. If I just go down here and, let's say, kick another value in for the base random noise, we get something like that, completely different. So if your customer asks you, oh, but I want a different apple, can you create one? You just have to click here and there, and that's it. You're creating maybe godlike. No, not really. Just a completely different apple. And that's the fascinating thing about procedural textures. You're just the master of all your details without relying or depending on bitmap textures or photographs. So by dialing in some subsurface scattering, so light scattering in the volume, dialing in some reflectance and some bump information, and also some displacement, we get the final juicy apple taking part in that kitchen scene. Okay, going back to my presentation. Here we are. The apple model and me sitting in front of the computer. Some more screenshots, very detailed screenshots from the oranges, the tomato leaves with all of its details, if you look very closely, and even the scratches on the metal of the spoon lying around somewhere on the fridge is also created procedurally. That was a lot about shading. Let's head over to lighting. For lighting, it's always a good idea to create a bulletproof lighting setup, because especially if you're doing animation, you should have a lighting setup that's absolutely reliable and that delivers no surprises when you go back to your computer in the morning or after the weekend when rendering is finished maybe. So no surprises, please, bulletproof lighting setup. So for that, you might have to think a bit outside the box. So what we have here is the total shot of the kitchen scene. And we see here we have a pretty low standing sun as the key light coming from the left, top left. And we have some indirect light going on. Light is bouncing around. You can see some caustic artifacts from reflections being interreflected to the wall. You can see indirect light between the fruits and the vegetables, and you can see all kinds of light going on from the oven to the balls and backwards. So that seems to be rather complex and computational intensive, but it isn't. It's just you being a creator. And I will show you how. Look at that. Here we have the first step, how this is made up. The daylight, just an area light with area shadows, diffuse area shadows coming from the left. And this is untextured. Why am I saying that? Please take a look at the top left corner of the wall, and I will now go to the next slide. Can you see that? There's a slight color variation in the daylight coming from an imaginative window. And this is just done with an area light and an area shadow, of course, with a texture, with a very simple color gradient. I applied a texture, a procedural texture, just a gradient to my daylight coming from the left. And that's it. You create that complex effect of something from the ground outside on the street, maybe from the ground level, is reflecting on the upper side of your wall. And in turn, the daylight, the sky, the bluish sky is reflected on the lower side of your wall. And light being turned down in that way is called a camera obscura principle. And normally that would be computational, very intensive, but with just being a creator, you can do a very cheap trick and achieve this by just a very dirty trick with a color gradient as a texture. It's so simple. Here we have the sunlight, and now some indirect sky dome light. See me here is a hemispherical light coming from above for the items on the furniture. And now I just placed some manually placed bounce lights across the scene, imitating indirect light. And you now might get the idea that there's no global illumination in here. How can this be? Because I want to. I'm doing all my animation stuff, my lighting for animation without global illumination. It's kind of sports for me. It's kind of artistic approach for me. Most of the time, it's an artistic approach. I want to be the master of my own light, even of my own indirect light, to the smallest point, to the atom of the light. So I'm in control of all of that by doing my very own light. And here we are in the almost final stage with some brightening on the wall and with some subsurface scattering, I told you before, on the fruits and some ambient occlusion in the shadow areas. And let's take a closer look at the importance of subsurface scattering for fruits. What you now can see is the oranges with just the diffuse reflection, just the behavior of cinema for these materials saying, hey, show me where I'm in the light. And now you can see the strong impact of light being scattered inside the volume of the orange, inside in diffused, even in diffuse terms. So no subsurface scattering with subsurface scattering, a huge difference. Now it's looking juicy and yeah, you want to bite in. So as we're dealing here with some extra still lifes in the close-up shot, there's some extra light going on. You can see it here. If I switch back and forth with bounce light and without bounce light, and it's the same from middle distance with bounce lights and without bounce lights. So this is increasing realism as well. So what about the shadows? The shadows look pretty unnatural right now, because right now it doesn't take the transparency into account. Why is that? Because I wanted to. I just deactivated that transparency checkbox in the Sunlights tab shadow. And if I activate that, we get a paper cut shadow looking completely unnatural. See that? A paper cut shadow. Why is that? Because the shadow is by default not taking into account the refraction of the glass. Let's have a look at the real world example here. This is a glass standing in my studio. And we can define shadow as the deviation of light. And we can define caustics, caustic artifacts, artifacts from light refracting inside the glass, as, let's say, the complementation of the shadows. So the shadows are the deviation of light, a vacuum, no light. And the caustics are just the light being refracted through the glass. So we need caustics. And here we go, without caustics, and with caustics added as a separate render layer in Cinema 4D. And all of that combined in compositing in Adobe After Effects. So I think that's a very important important element, no caustics and caustics on top. Very important for increasing realism. So on the wall, on the top left border, ladies and gentlemen, we have some more caustic-like effects, looking really complicated, but in fact they're, again, a very dirty, very cheap trick. It's just some freestyle painting in Photoshop. Just a shaky hand with your Wacom pen in Photoshop, painting an alpha texture and applying that to a light source coming from above. And that's it. That's the whole thing about that complicated looking effect on the top left border corner of the image. So it can be so simple sometimes. Okay, here we have, look, please focus your eye on the area behind the bottles. We have some caustic-like effects going on behind the bottles as well. Look at that. Some greenish light going on, some orangish light, and there's just a few more placed light sources, 3 to be correct, behind the bottles in order to create the illusion or mimicking indirect light or caustics, maybe very diffuse caustics coming from the light's reflection through the colored glass. Talking about colors, it's always very important to keep an eye on the color schemes in your image, on your composition. Use color schemes and contrasts. So what do we have here? Obviously, the most attracting points in this composition are the reddish and oranges, highly saturated colors from the tomatoes, from apples and oranges. These are grabbing your attention immediately. And these reddish warm colors are complementary contrasted by bluish elements in the background, as you see from the packaging of the flakes or the salt element here in the background. This bluish colors are complementary contrasting tomatoes and the other warm colors. What's complementary contrast? It's just colors lying on opposite places on the color wheel. So cold colors and warm colors, complementary contrasting each other. And we have some more things going on here. We have that reddish color being continued in the background with that red cap of the mineral tablets tube, or with the red tab of the Vingar's bottle. We have the green continued in the background on that metal plate. By the way, Samstaggrillen is barbecue on Saturday, in case you missed it. And we have another greenish elements in the background on that bottle. So all of that makes your composition stronger, and continuing colors across your composition makes your atmosphere more coherent. Keep that in mind when doing a composition. Contrast, color contrast, and color schemes. Talking about composition, it is always a good idea to use a human camera behavior. And I do every bet the questions in the chat that how is that possible? It looks so real, is also coming heavily from that shaky handheld camera. By the way, it's created with an object in Cinema 4D that is called the motion camera. It's just a camera object. You can apply some random like noise-based behaviors to it and some movement to it. So that's the whole magic behind the camera movement. Yeah, and the human camera behavior and the shallow depth of field is also a very important thing. Let's take a look at that. Can we show the kitchen scene video, please, again?
All right, let's go.
The first one?
The first one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Apollinarisstraße.
Coming up right now.
Was filmst du denn da?
Nix. Licht.
All right, we're back.
Cool. So you saw it. It's just the shaky hand camera, and it's the shallow depth of field that makes up realism as well. So if we have a look at the close-ups here, you can see that the glass in the background is clearly out of focus of the virtual camera, and it's the same with the next perspective. So a shallow depth of field, a shallow area beneath and behind your point of focus is a behavior a camera gets when looking at very small scale scenes. So it gives you an idea of how big that scene is scaled. That's also a very important point here, I think. So let's head over to the step of rendering. Different rendering quality in different areas. So that's always a good trick if you encounter several maybe difficulties with certain areas of your scene. So for the overall scene of that kitchen, I just used the internal engine of physical render in Cinema 4D, and I used just the automatic adaptive workflow, just lowering the error threshold, and that's it. That's all the parameters I had to take care about, and that's the adjustment for the overall scene, with a pretty high ray threshold and a pretty low reflection depth. So reflections don't get inter-reflected more and more, just like a ping pong. I want to prevent that for the overall scene, but for the glass area, I dialed in some different parameters with much more higher sample quality and a higher reflection depth while staying at the same ray threshold. So these are very Cinema 4D specific terms. Don't worry about that. But all I want to say is I defined the area of the glass as a specific render layer and rendered that as a patch with higher quality sampling to combine it with the other image layer in compositing. So talking about rendering, physical render in Cinema 4D is accelerated by Intel Embry. It's a ray tracing acceleration, and it's all about accelerating the rendering of huge amounts of geometry. So here we have the kitchen scene with Embry rendered in 1 minute 18, and without Embry it takes 2 minutes and 29. So Embry is just cutting render times into half when it comes to high amounts of geometry.
Mark, before you continue, maybe a quick question in between, because there were a lot of comments regarding realism and how awesome it is, and then there were also some questions regarding, well, what about sound? Like, how do you go on about sound? Do you compose it yourself? Like, do you take it somewhere, or how do you complement that in your video?
It was so simple you wouldn't believe. I just stepped into a real kitchen of a friend of mine, used that item, and recorded the sound. And the girl asking, "What are you filming?" is my girlfriend asking, "What are you filming?" And the guy answering, "Oh, nothing, just light." It's me. So all of that
well, there you have it, guys.
Recorded with a smartphone.
Right.
And then combined, and combine it with the animation, and that's it.
Okay, and what you just talked about regarding the render time, was it like the render time for the whole movie, or was it just for one image?
One image.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, talking about ray tracing acceleration, the standard render, it's a different CPU engine in Cinema 4D, is even faster with Intel Embry. And we should now have a look at the video for Intel Embry.
Yep, we're on. All right, there we have it.
So what you can see is on the right-hand side, it's the same since Cinema 4D release 21. It's the same with release 23, the most recent release. That Intel Embry is bringing a huge render acceleration here, and almost cutting render times into 1/3 compared to without Embry. So that's a cool thing, I think. So talking about ray tracing or rendering acceleration, there's another Intel technology on board in Cinema 4D, which is called the Intel Open Image Denoiser, and it's a deep learning based denoising. So you might uncover that once in a while you render something, a scene, you're very happy with it, but the last bit of noise, really annoying and bugging you, is taking forever to get rid of. A disproportionate amount of time, and the Intel Open Image Denoiser is helping you there because it's just eliminating that last bit of noise. Just look at the blinds in the reflection in the depth of field here. You can clearly see some noise going on here, and also in the shadows of the flower on the wall. And this is rendered with Physical Render Release 23 in medium quality on a pretty old Mac laptop, a MacBook Pro, without denoiser, taking 3 minutes 47. And please keep your eye on the blinds. Now the noise is gone. It's the same quality setting, medium, almost the same render time, 3.48 minutes, 1 second more, but with denoiser. And that's kind of magic, I think, because that quality, you would otherwise take you 16 minute 50, because you would have to take the high quality setting in order to get the same quality without denoiser. So it's 16 minutes 50 versus 3 minutes 48. So for the same quality result. And that's a huge leap forward, I think. It's, yeah, we have a video on that. Can we see the denoiser video with another example?
That's definitely a big difference.
Yeah. So it's grainy and
Yeah,
not grainy.
and we're back.
So a huge difference, and it's cutting render times almost into 1/3, so or accelerating at around 300%. And I think that's something. So, by the way, all of that, what I told you about until now is done with the physical render in Cinema 4D. But currently my studio is switching to Corona renderer from Chaos Group. And of course, Intel Embry and Open Image Denoiser are also available for that cool render engine. It's also proudly CPU based, and it's also supporting Intel Embry ray tracing and Intel AI denoising, or in other words, the Intel Open Image Denoiser. So that's a cool thing. Last but not least, the compositing. When you're finished with rendering, enhance your dynamic range. That's one task of the compositing. Here we have the completely rendered scene. It's looking okay, it's looking good maybe, but it's also looking a bit boring. You can see it. It's not too contrasty. It's a little like raw footage coming from a Arri Alexa or something like that. Yeah, it's like a raw photograph, and there are pretty dull contrasts here. But what I do is I always do some, let's say, more or less boring contrasts, but render them with at least 16-bit of dynamic range. So I have enough room to increase the contrast in compositing, as you can see here, before compositing, after compositing, by the way, with caustics as well. And you see, I can do the whole contrast thing in compositing, and that's important, I think. Another task of compositing is destroy your image. Remember that painting of the guys standing in front of the waterfalls with that strange looking overexposures? It's exactly that. Do some analog artifacts to your image. So here we have the rendered result, and here we have the compositing. And what you can see here is there on the edges of the image, there's some chromatic aberration going on. On very brightly lit areas, there's some gloom and glare going on, and some overexposure going on, and some even film grain going on. So all of that is giving your perfectly rendered image a slightly analog touch by partly destroying it, making it more analog and more credible. So now some of you might ask, Mark,
Yeah, there were
pretty
quite some
nice, but
questions regarding this. Yeah.
yeah, how long does all of this take you? So there's no fit-for-all recipe, but we can take a look at the workflow of that scene, of that workload. Here we have a diagram again, and we have the different steps of the workflow with the underlying Intel technologies. And of course, the portion of time it takes. So concept and research and development. So getting ideas, doing scribbles, asking questions, does this work, does this not work? Maybe all that taking 10% of the time. Then scene creation, meaning modeling, shading, lighting, rendering, arranging things in space, and scattering hair, scattering dust fibers, all of this is about 40% of the whole workload's time. Then editing, meaning rendering and refining, going through iterations. I'm not quite happy with that, let's re-render it. All of that on my in-house render farm takes 30% with the underlying Intel technologies, for example, Intel Ambient Image Denoiser. Then post-production takes place inside Adobe After Effects, compositing, color grading, contrasts, effects, and complementing with sound and some nice red giant effects in compositing. Takes about 15%. All of that refining, combining, and getting the best perfect possible result out of that. Yeah, and in the end, encoding is maybe 5%. Never mind about that. Yeah, in consumption, it's out of my hands. You guys are now into the game. So yeah, that's pretty much the steps of the workflow. So the scene creation is, of course, the most time-demanding part. So best for last, that scene is available for download. What? Yeah, it's available for download on the Intel website. Take a screenshot or write it down, and yeah, you can play with that scene for personal learning purpose or for benchmarking your own hardware. And by the way, for benchmarking, you can still download Maxon Cinebench. And please leave me a like at Facebook for that.
And we'll also put this in the description of the YouTube video.
Cool.
And while we were at this previous video, anyways, there was an interesting comment or rather a question regarding, well, that specific kitchen scene. You know, he said, well, it might even be easier to just film that scene. So why would you like create it in a 3D environment? Like, what was it used for?
Because I can. That's all.
There you have it.
I wanted to. That's what I say. I'm a creator. I have the need for that. I'm not taking just a photo. I'm creating. And there's a huge difference between depicting and creating. Depiction might be boring, and creation is exciting.
I can definitely agree. Creation itself is so much more fulfilling also.
Yeah. Okay. So you can learn all of that, what you recently seen. Shading, lighting, and rendering, and also the basics of Cinema 4D at my place. Take a look at renderbaron DE training. And here's my on-site training facility with HP workstations equipped. And yeah, currently, due to the pandemic, only online trainings are available in my Maxon authorized training center, online via Zoom, Skype, or Sigpe. It should be Skype, or Microsoft Teams. And yeah, then you have a one-on-one training with your Maxon master trainer. So yeah, that's me, hopefully. Yeah, take a look at renderbaron DE training. And for now, that's all. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for listening. Leave me a like at Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and YouTube. And thanks for listening. Happy creating.
Well, so a lot of very interesting stuff. I mean, the chat was definitely hooked up because there were so many people even asking you to do a TED Talk regarding all this content creation and, well, just beautiful stuff. And well, guys, what do you think? Do you have any more comments for Mark and his studio, or any questions? I mean, this is the time to really ask the real expert, right? So drop him in the chat and we'll do our best. There's one more question again from Jomar asking, what was the specs of your PC? I guess the PC on which you did the actual render work just now.
Yeah. Well, the rendering took place in the in-house render farm, which is about, I think, 16 machines based on Intel Xeon and Intel i9. But the actual scene creation took place on the Intel Dual Xeon Platinum 8280M with 2 times 28 cores, physical cores, so 56 cores. The machine I showed you the benchmark from.
Right. Okay, so then maybe if you can send the link to Eric, then he can post it in the chat for everybody to,
Definitely
take a look at. And we have a lot of people saying, amazing work and vision, Mark. People gonna follow you. Great presentation. Thank you. This was amazing. So
welcome.
I guess the only compliments, not really any questions left. Well, there is. Miko is asking, like, if I have a minimum specs of a PC, can I still make it look real, just like yours?
You can, because everybody is starting somewhere. And me, I started 24 years ago with Cinema 4D and being self-employed since 20 years now. But I also started on a very simple PC, which in fact was an Apple Mac G4 with 2 times 800 gigahertz. And at that time, the hardware was really limited in comparison to today's specs. But if you're creative, you can do it. And you don't need a top-notch machine for that. You can do it with a base machine as well for starters, and then level up bit by bit. And take a look at my YouTube channel. Yesterday, I just posted a video about how I built up my render farm, in-house render farm over the years from the beginning on.
Cool. Okay, then the last question from Edwin. Why do you not use Maya?
Because I learned Cinema 4D when I was a trainee in an advertising agency when I was, 21. So this was my first 3D package I learned successfully. I had courses for Maya and for 3ds Max at the university. But what I discovered is that the learning curve of Cinema 4D is really so steep. You can just dive in, don't have to care about too much technical stuff or irritating, confusing gizmos and menus. You just create. And that's what Cinema 4D is for. You just dive into the software, and after a certain time of getting into it, a certain short time of getting into it, you're into it and you can create. And that's why I stick to Cinema 4D until today, and I train it as well as a trainer.
All right, then cool. So, okay. Eric is posting. Well, he's he got a interesting question. Mark, have you used a GPU renderer like Redshift 3D? Yeah, correct. One more to be squeezed
Redshift
in.
is, Redshift is has been recently purchased by Maxon, so it's in the ecosystem of Cinema 4D more or less. But since I'm doing heavy workload stuff, ranging significantly above the VRAM of today's graphic cards, I prefer CPU rendering because I can easily throw in almost a terabyte of RAM into a render node or a render client, and I don't get any out of RAM messages from the VRAM, because GPU rendering is at first glance pretty fast, and of course faster in most cases than CPU rendering. But if the RAM requirements of your scene significantly go above that what you have for VRAM, then this GPU has to outsource the workload and is considerably slowing down the render speed. So that's why I'm sticking to CPU, because I do heavy duty rendering animations.
Awesome. Then cool. I guess that will be it. All right. So then, really awesome, Mark. We definitely enjoyed all the realism. I mean, it was indistinguishable from reality. So I guess that was the point, right? And I hope you guys also learn a lot. And well, yeah, try to support Mark and go to his social channels to give him some support. And well, Mark, definitely hope to see you again sometimes in the future. It was very interesting to have you here, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, have a good day, Mark.
Have a good day.
All right, guys. So that was a lot of realism, and let's see, what have you guys learned, huh? So before we continue to some more stuff regarding, okay, now you have seen a lot of information or from Intel, you have seen some real demonstration and knowledge from a in-house expert. So before we continue to what kind of products are we going to offer you guys to help you in your journey to become a content creator, or even become a better content creator because you're in need for some better gear. We're going to do some giveaways because yes, it has indeed been some time for for the last giveaway. So let's get it kicking, because Eric has already drawn 2 more winners for today's Steam wallet codes, and it seems that the next winners are. Oh, this is a different one, difficult name, but Zmija 1, ZMIJA 1, and Gerard the 4th. Congratulations on the Steam wallet codes. Do something nice with it, get it kicking with some programs in the Steam library, or get some games. But that's up to you. So congratulations, and well, we have more coming.
Heb je er 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just confirming with Eric that I mentioned both winners. All right, guys, we still, I guess, have the big CPU coming up, right? So the 10900K. So that one is still in the drawing pool somewhere, and there's still chance to sign up. So if you still go to msi.com/do/insider, you can still win the GPU that our friends at Intel has provided so kindly for you guys to win. All right. Well, if this link doesn't work for you, just watch out for the. Well, keep an eye on the chat, because there our bot will also drop the direct link to the giveaway that you can still participate in. So good luck, guys, and we'll see very soon who the winner is of the CPU. Now we're going to continue with some other stuff, more into the product category of what can we offer you guys, what should you be looking out for, and what's going to well, suit your taste and your profession and workflow. And before that, before I really get into the product, just a little bit of slides to show you guys some background information, and we're going to make the switch once my director Eric is ready. Okay, there's a little lag. Okay, now it's ready. So yeah, a lot of you guys, of course, know us for gaming hardware. We have been in the industry for quite a long time now, so we already know all the ins and outs. We're leading in the industry in specific areas also, but we have also taken our knowledge and transitioned into content creation. Well, this is not something new already, but I guess if you guys are not really following us on a regular basis, well, then because we have been in the content creations game for quite some time now, and you might have already seen us do some other live streams or videos regarding content creation. For example, here you see some screenshots regarding past projects that we have done with other content creators that we invite to our live streams. We also we always try to provide some more content than just our own stuff to you guys, for you to learn something, get some more insights about. And here, for example, you can also see well, a live demonstration of a 3D artist, how he just goes on about his work, which is also very realistic. His name is Maarten, and he was a world championship for ZBrush. So we do a lot of this kind of stuff, and that's also because, you know, nowadays there are so many content creators. It's so much more easier to become a content creator compared to back in the days. You know, everybody has a mobile phone. You can capture something, and it's easy for you to just, you know, do some editing and stuff like that. But if you want to be a little bit more serious, which is a lot easier nowadays, then yeah, you're gonna need some hardware for that. And since we already have all the hardware knowledge needed for, you know, gaming and, well, for content creation, it's, well, once you have the hardware knowledge, it's going to be quite easy to also master. So, you know, we have transitioned into this area for quite some time now, and yeah, why not? Because, you know, there are so many gamers out there, and the industry kind of sort of also collapses with content creators market. And nowadays there's even more than what is the numbers are suggesting right now, because this is I believe 2-3 years old already. But, you know, we know how to serve the market, so we have brought out a lot of the products already, which I've all lined up underneath the table, which I'll show in just a minute. And before that, some more tips to you guys if you're getting into content creation, or if you're looking to get a new piece of hardware or a pre-built system. You know, what do you need for example, Adobe After Effects if you're into video production and stuff like that. So here you need to take into account that CPU and memory are very, very important for you to really have in your system if you want to have a fluent time experience while editing and exporting your stuff. And if you're looking more into like what we just witnessed from Mark with all his epic 3D designs and animations, well, you're going to be needing some different kind of GPU, well, hardware, because here the GPU also together with the CPU is going to be very, very vital for your overall process. So here, this overview is really here for you to have an idea of what you need if you're getting into a specific area of content creation with software. And well, if you have any questions regarding this, just drop it in the chat for now. Yeah, so let's continue. So here we have, you know, we have all sort of products that's going to help you in your journey. We have dedicated content creation monitors. We have pre-built desktop systems. We also have motherboards if you're looking into building your own systems. So tons of stuff that I'm going to show you now. So productivity desktops. We started off with the Prestige P130 series, and then we brought out the P100 series, which is more powerful, and I'm going to show you just what kind of, well, what the P130, for example, is meant for. So let me grab this from underneath the table here. Very compact, because here we also believe that, well, content creation, well, the desktops, it's also a statement. It's not just a piece of hardware that's sitting there. So we really try to, you know, make this fit into your style, your, well, let me adjust the angle a little bit. For this to really fit into your lifestyles, because for content creators, you know, this is more than just a piece of hardware. It needs to fit with your lifestyle. It's very compact, only about 13 liters. And what this machine is more or less meant for is light editing work with video, and more or less meant for really dedicated Photoshop experience. So if you're looking into 2D design and a lot of Photoshop work, this is the perfect machine. And also if you're getting into video editing, well, the video editing world, this is an excellent place to start. For, you know, the specifications, you can also read off the screen. Don't really need to go by them one by one, but you know, the important ones, the CPU, it's right now it goes to the 9th gen with up to a i7, the latest i7, and up to 32 gigabytes of memory, because these two are the most important ones for what it's meant for. And Brian is saying, is that an Xbox One S? Does it look like an Xbox One S? Nah, this is definitely not an Xbox One S. But I get the humor. That's good. Whereas Miko is saying it's sleek and modern. Thank you. That's what we were trying to go for. Exactly. Yeah, guys, if you have any questions regarding all the hardware and stuff like that, don't worry. So I see Marcus is asking, is a GTX 1050 Ti good for editing? So like I said, you need to know what your hardware is meant for and what you're going to use it for. So this one, the P130, for example, is not meant for 3D animation or rendering work. This is not for that. So for 2D photo editing and Photoshop and the light video editing work, you don't need that much GPU power at all. Because like I said before, here what you want to have is a powerful CPU that's fast, that has a good core performance, and memory, very important for the real-time preview. So no, 1050 Ti is more than enough for what this is meant for 2D photo, Photoshop, and light video editing, well, just regular video editing work. No problem. Anything else maybe? All right. So moving on to the next one. If you're into something more, well, if you're more serious regarding video editing, and maybe you're already getting into animation and 3D work, you're going to be looking at something else, which is our Creator P100 series. This is, well, way more powerful than the P130 series that you have just seen. And here we have two models. We have the, let me just adjust this one a little bit. So here we have the dark version, and we also have a white version. So you can choose whichever ones you like the best. Because initially we started off with the white versions, so this one. But then we got feedback from you guys saying, hey, we also like black versions. What about that? So we listened, and well, we already had a lot of positive comments and feedback regarding the design of this one already. But then you guys prefer to have, one more color choice, which is the dark version. So let me grab that one. So we listened to that, and then we have brought out the black version. Well, this is not really black. It's more like a dark gray, gunmetal gray, because it's not black, as you can see. And just like the P100E, both of these systems are very compact, and yet they're very powerful. Many of you who have followed us, also with our gaming stuff, it kind of reminds you with our Trident X, because that's also the very, very compact system, but it still packs so much power. Here it is the same. So what kind of specifications are we talking about here with the P100, the Creator P100 series? So we have the P100 and the P100A, and we also have the P100X, each going up in specifications and configurations. So for the CPU, you can expect that it goes all the way up to a i9-10900K. And with GPU, this is going to be a different story compared to the P130, because here you already have the choice of 280 and Super. Now, I'm not going to spill any secrets, but in the next generation, the GPU could potentially be much higher, but we shall see. Yeah, so right now the DDR4 is also going up to 64 gigabytes. And of course, Thunderbolt is also present. Now I'll share more details regarding Thunderbolt in just a minute. But right now, yeah, these are all the specifications that you can expect from the Creator P100 series. And if you have any questions for that, just let me know in the chat. So there's quite some stuff said. Let me check. Well, so Phillips is asking, why is it so slim? How the cooling system works? Well, we have really made the best use, the most efficient way of the internal space by realigning all the. I have to hear Eric. It's fine. By realigning the chambers within the desktop, because here we have separated all the hardware into the appropriate chamber. So the CPU has its own little chamber where everything is being very tightly managed. There's great cable management, and the heat of the CPU is not going to bother the heat of the GPU, and vice versa, because the GPU is also sitting in its own chamber. Actually, I have done a dedicated, I think more than once, live stream regarding these bad boys and the ins and outs. I've taken everything apart and shown you how to upgrade in the future if needed. So if you're interested, just go to msi.com/ the MSI, our YouTube channel, MSI Gaming, and then you can look for MSI Insider. And there in the playlist, you can find all the previous videos and live streams, including these ones. So yeah, the cooling is by air, and it's definitely very, very well managed, as cooling is also something that we always try to improve each generation. And you guys are already familiar with this from our gaming pre-builds. And here we have taken over the same technology. Okay, so let me see any other more questions. Just gonna continue. Now, so like I said, the CPU, especially for what this kind of system is meant for, is going to be very important. Like Mark also mentioned, especially if you're also doing some render work on CPU. But the Creator P100 series, they are more meant for real professional video editing. Even going up to 8K and stuff like that. So really heavy video editing work. And if you're getting into rendering and 3D animation, that's also possible. But that's like a good beginning step if you're getting into these kind of stuff. But where this is really shining, what it's meant for is if you're going to be editing a lot of video, even on higher 8K resolution, that's going to be no problem. So that's where it's going to be for. And with the latest i9 10900K, you have up to more than 30% performance increase compared to the previous gen. So yeah, really good shout out to Intel on all of this performance increase. And well, so like I already indicated before, we have more SKUs and models configurations available in our P100 series. So P100 and P100A and also P100X. So you have to see for yourself what specifications will fit your taste best or your needs. Yeah, okay, I see some comments to please open the desktop. Okay, I'm gonna open it up. So
I already posted the link, yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah, because we're kind of running low on time today, so I'm not going to do that. So you guys can check out that video if you're interested. But all right, so here of course we're talking about content creations, and Thunderbolt is of course very, very important. Now Intel already did a very, very good job at explaining why and how and where it's all used for and stuff like that. But I'm just going to hammer it one more time regarding where are we going to implement this. So we have this in our Creator X299 system, motherboard, and we also have it in our P100 series. So this is all integrated into the system. Now, of course, Thunderbolt also a little bit of history. It's been a long time since in the USB development history. It has went from the 3.1, just like so many generations already. And then, if you really want the best, you really have to go for the Thunderbolt. So we have it in all of our P100 series, and well. Just to recap also, because like I said, Intel already did a good job at this, but there's so much more functionality. It's so much more versatile than just regular USB. It's also much more trustworthy and reliable. And just the sheer speed, it's just amazing. And you can use it for display, you can use it for high power charging for your devices. You can use it, of course, mainly if you're a content creator and you have a lot of content for content transfer, data transfer, because that speed is really something that it just makes you smile. So yeah, definitely make sure if you are not familiar with Thunderbolt to check out, what kind of stuff can you do with Thunderbolt, and how is it so much more different with USB, like we have already talked about during this live stream. But you can of course always do some more homework on yourself, because Thunderbolt is really something to look forward to, especially if you're a content creator. And just meanwhile, well, if I missed any questions here, just give me a sign, because yeah, trying to do my best to keep a track on the chat, but it goes quite fast sometimes. So, well, since it's also such a mobile and compact system, you know, you can take this, you know, to other workplaces. You can move it around. And of course, there is also the Wi-Fi capability, and here you have Wi-Fi 6, which is a lot more better, you know, less latency compared to the previous generation, and is 3 times faster. It goes all the way up to 2.4G. So even with if you're like moving around, you have the versatility here of, you know, even using Wi-Fi to you know, transfer data over to your NAS or backup or anything like that. And you also have always the fast and reliable access to internet. So really, you can make great use of let's just say how handy it is to move it around. So if you have any more questions regarding the creator systems, let us know. Otherwise, I'm going to put it on the table again and move on to something quite important, which is the display. Ruben is asking, why are you alone? Well, I'm not really alone, but Eric is just not on camera today.
I'm not allowed to talk.
Because, yeah, Eric's not allowed to talk. We have too many speakers and presenters today, and so we decided to just cut Eric off, which seems to be objected in the chat right now. You have good fans. That's nice. Yeah, Eric is laughing in the corner right now. Don't worry, we're still keeping the safe distance, of course, in these times. It's especially now with Corona still being a very serious threat. We take our distance and definitely are staying safe. So we have, which is monitor-wise for content creation, this is our newest addition to the product portfolio. So our PS 321 series. So here we have 2 different models. We have the 4K model, which is the URV version, or this one, which is the QR version, which is a 1440p. Now, these 2 have the same specifications when it comes to, for example, fidelity of the screen and color accuracy, and, you know, the color palette and stuff like that, which I'll show you in just a minute. But the main difference here is really the screen resolution and the refresh rate. So with this one, for example, the QR version with 1440p, you also have 120 Hertz refresh rate. So this panel is really fast. Now, you might think about like, hey, don't you just need that for gaming and not for other stuff? Well, here, if you're making a high FPS video, that's also going to be very handy for you to have a screen that's able to display that kind of speed. So, especially with 120 FPS getting quite normal for some areas of video production. But of course, if you want to take a break from content creation, you can also enjoy high FPS gaming on this monitor. So hey, why not, right? Really killing 2 birds with 1 stone, or 1 monitor in this case. And I just put up the hood for you guys, and in case you're wondering what that is for, well, the hood is for when you're talking about professional content creation monitor. Well, the hood is going to block out all the excess and light spillage from your area, like from the ceiling lamps or lights, or, you know, the sunlight, or any lights coming in from the window. As a content creator, when you're like really serious about your work, you really got to make sure that, you know, what you're seeing is really what you're seeing, perceiving, because sometimes panels can be affected by the light spillage, so some colors might be deviated from the original what it's meant to be. So this is really what that is for. And if you're wondering if it's magnetic like Hans van der Swan is doing, yes, See, pops back into place. So everything's fully magnetic, so if you don't want to have this thing, all you gotta do is just very simply take it off and it's gone. If you want to put it back on, you don't have to click it in somewhere, you know, there's no holes that you have to match or something like that. Just magnetic. All right, so what are we talking about here? Because here we really did our best to match the highest standards in the professional world when you're talking about content creation monitors. Like Delta 2, the fidelity, the accuracy with Delta 2 is just so much more accurate and realistic. That's really something that you need when you're doing content creation with video production, or you got to make sure that you're displaying the right values of colors. That's something that's that you can't really miss. Now, of course, the screens, they are both IPS, giving you the best viewing angles. So really, even hammering in more into the color accuracy. And of course, you also have the HDR 600 capability here. So fully certified HDR. If you're into HDR content nowadays, of course, also getting more and more important. Just like Intel also already told you guys in their previous presentation. And for your convenience, we have also implemented a dedicated card reader in the monitor itself. So, you know, why not, right? So you don't have to look for your desktop if it's like underneath the table, tucked away somewhere. You have this quick access. Yeah, so if you have any questions regarding this, of course, just ask. And if you're wondering about DCI-P3, of course, that's something also very important. It's 95% PCI-P3 coverage and 98% sRGB. So I see somebody's asking how many HDR ports are there. If I remember correctly, 2, but I have to take a look. Yes, so we have 2 HDMI ports and 1 display port and 1 USB Type-C. So I can show you the entire I/O port on the back. So there you have it. Also the USB upstream and also 2 more extra USB 3s for your convenience. And of course with the power on the other side. So when you power this up, there's going to be beautiful lighting coming out of the backside, just as a little extra to mention. All right. So the next one I'm going to show you is that well, it's another content creation monitor, but this one is going to be on a different aspect ratio, because the previous one is a regular 16:9 aspect ratio, and this one is a massively wider screen, as you can see, because here we're talking about 21:9. And this is also a 5K display.
Did you touch the screen?
What did you say, Eric?
Did you touch the screen with your fingers?
Yeah, I have moved it around quite a few times this afternoon, so let's just pretend nothing is here. All right, guys. It's impossible to prevent, okay? Let me show you the other side. So I've already taken the liberty of taking off the hood here, because of course you guys are going to wonder what's hiding back there.
It looks like, yeah, the green screen is failing.
Oh, I see.
That's okay now.
Yeah. So here we're talking about the PS341WU, which is our ultra-wide 5K content creation monitor. So this is really, you know, the real benefit here is that when you're working, especially when you're multitasking, it's going to be, you know, you see very regularly that people have like 2 screens, especially with content creators, and they really do use it both screens, because on one screen they're editing, on the other screen they have their library open, or another program, or some research field that's open, you know, anything. And here you really have the beauty of sharing that screen real estate however you like with our software. You can choose to have on the left side for 70%, for example, your Adobe program open. On the other 30% you can have a library or anything else, really making use of the 5K display. And someone is asking, yes, you can also mount them. They have the regular size 10x10 VESA mount, so no worries. So regarding the specifications here, once again we have IPS, because when you're talking about content creations you really have to go for IPS, because that really gives you the best viewing angles, and the color reproduction is just excellent here. And once again with HDR we have the certified HDR 600, so you can really enjoy all your HDR content and making sure that they're being displayed properly as they should. And so
How many Chrome tabs?
How many Chrome tabs?
How many Chrome tabs next to each other?
Seems like you can do that unlimited, because Chrome tabs, they tend to get smaller the more you open, right?
Smart guy.
So, but yeah, if you're wondering like how wide the screen actually is, well, yeah, it's a 21:9 and it's a 5K display. And I can stretch out my arm for you to have an appropriate measure to really know how long this is, right? So this is my entire arm. So if you stick out your arm, it's quite long, right? So you can fit many Chrome tabs, believe me. And when we're talking about the color reproduction here, of course, this is a content creation monitor. And once again, here we have excellent color reproduction. With DCI-P3, we even have a 98% coverage. So really covering a wide palette of color space. And it's going to be very realistic, vivid, just the way you want to have it. Now, some more stuff that we're going to talk about, of course, besides monitor and desktop. Because if you're interested into building your own system, you're going to need a motherboard. Now, we have quite a few models, but nowadays you should be looking at the Creator X299 or our MEG C490i. Yes, I will show them, no worries. Which they're right there, but I'll get more to details specifically per model. If you're talking about, or if you're wanting to build your own content creation system. Now, let's start with the little guy here, because when I say little guy, I really mean little guy. So, this is my hand. So this is really the smallest size you can get, right? So this is a mini ITX. But don't be fooled by its size, because this thing is very powerful, and its power delivery is also excellent. So if you're slapping a 10900K on here, it's going to be a piece of cake for it to have a very stable power delivery and all the goodies. Now, what we're talking about here, of course, here you also have the Thunderbolt 3 capability. So for content creation, very important. Once again, we have here a very excellent and direct 8-phase and 98 power design for the excellent and consistent, but also reliable power delivery for your CPU. So you can have a very uninterrupted, good and smooth experience with your CPU, even when it's like at max load. Now, we also have, of course, our DDR4 boost memory technology with up to 5000 megahertz. And on board we have the 2.5 LAN and also the Intel Wi-Fi 6. So connectivity here, absolutely no problem. And with our improved frosted heatsink cooling solution, you can also expect to have a 10%, well, not 10%, but 10 Celsius degrees lower on average. So all in all, especially if you're looking to build a small system, a very compact, but you don't want to compromise with the power and performance, the Z490i Unify is definitely a very good contender. So just going a little bit closer for you guys to see more closely what's on the board. So with a massive heatsink here, spreading over the entire board. All right. So, but if you want to, do more than heavy video production and light animation work, and you really want to get into it, then you really got to talk about our X299, or our Creator X299. So this, compared to the previous one, is a regular sized ATX board. Now here you really have the best goodies that you want, because here you're going to be slapping on a very powerful multi-threaded CPU. And we have quite a few generations of the X299 already, but with this one, we did not just really simply just improve the design. We really did look at the hardware side and also the feature side. What can we improve? What can we get you even more? And if you're really that serious into content creation, animation, and 3D, just like something Mark also did, you should be looking at something like this. Here we have the all-new aluminum design with pre-installed I/O. So what this means is that sometimes you also see that this part, the whole heatsink here, is being covered by plastic. That occurs sometimes. But here, really, the entire thing here is aluminum, really providing you with the heatsink, with the heat dispersion that's needed. So no plastic here. Well, we also have a more, compared to the previous one, of course, we have a 12-phase now, the 90A power management. And as for connectivity, we even have a 10G LAN together with a 1G LAN, so we have a dual LAN here, connectivity. And, well, Wi-Fi 6, of course, and also tons and tons of USBs for you to slap on all your peripherals, as you can see here. So the I/O shield, the backside here is really cramped with all, well, really not really missing anything right here. And as you can see, it also has RGB. So if you guys prefer to have that, it's definitely also on here. Now, what's very, very extensive here on the Creator X299, the newest one here, is the heatsink. The extensive heatsink on the board. So what do we have here? For example, if you look at all the top, if we have the solid VRM heatsink and the backplate with an extensive heat pipe that goes through all the way. And then I also already mentioned the full aluminum cover with the extended heatsink design, really providing you with all that cooling that you would like to have when delivering all the power to the CPU. So the aluminum cover doesn't stop there, because even on our audio boost chips, we also have the aluminum cover for the best experience there. And of course, when we're talking about all the M.2s, because here you have already 3 M.2s on the board itself, all being cooled by our M.2 shield frozzer. When we were going to the chipset side, we also have a very big, enlarged chipset heatsink. So really everything on the board here is being cooled to excellency. So no worries about the heat dispersion right here on the board. And we also have two extension cards that's going to come with the X299, the Creator X299. One which is the M.2 expansion card. So here you see our expander arrow. We have 4 more M.2 slots available for you to be installed right here. And you can enjoy all the RAID modes as to your liking, really protecting all your data the way you like it. And the speed, of course, with the M.2 is just something to, really, really love. And you have, so now in total with the expansion card, 7 turbo M.2s available for your Creator X299. So you can slap all the M.2s on there as you want. So the other one that I mentioned just now, of the 2 that you will get with the Creator X299, is the Thunderbolt M3 expansion slot. So here you have even more connectors available for you to enjoy. And well, I know some of you guys are wondering about Thunderbolt 4. Well, we're going to talk about this in the very near future. So you really got to make sure to tune in the very, very near future. We're going to tackle this entire thing. And all your questions will then be answered. So no worries there. Okay, I see someone is asking how many SATA ports are on there. Well, oh, it's already answered. Cool. Eric is doing a really good job here. All right, I'll leave the chat up to you then. So here, yeah, you have more capability, well, more Thunderbolt options also with an extra USB Type-C. So all of this is all coming with the Creator X299. So you also have all the speed here with the extra options. When we're talking about, you know, if you're computing your own PC, of course, you also got to get into this GPU part. Now, for the NVIDIA side, you have to understand that their GeForce GTX and RTX, they are very good for, well, they are also included in our creation desktops because that's the first difference there. With our, for example, the Creator X299, you can fit all 4 categories on there, from GTX to RTX to Titan to Quattro. And we only have GTX and RTX implemented in our desktops, and like I already explained, that's what they're also meant for. It's not meant for heavy rendering and animation, 3D work and stuff like that, because then you really got to look at the X299, the Creator X299. And here you can also fit in the Titan RTX and the Quattro if you really, really need all that polygons, if you know what I mean. So here, something else that's really important is that when we're talking about GPUs, when you're a content creator, it's going to be a different, it's going to mean differently than we're talking about gaming. And what I mean is that here you can actually benefit from the multi-GPU setup. So I think many of you guys already know that multi-GPU setup for gaming is it's in the past, right? Because in the past you still had some benefits, and nowadays there's 0 to none benefit as to doing so. Well, with content creation, that's a different story, because here you can really enjoy the difference, because many programs do make use of it. So here, for example, with this simple Octane bench, you can see with multi-GPUs, you can really double up the effect of the performance. So, and when you're talking about multi-GPUs, you gotta make sure that when you're installing multiple GPUs on your motherboard, for example, on the Creator X299, you gotta make sure that your GPU is not too thick, so it doesn't require more than like 3 or more slots. Then you can still fit in all the GPUs on there as you want. So on the Creator X299, you can fit in 4 GPUs. Now, in this case, the GPUs are going to be aligned right on top of each other very closely. So preferably, well, here we really recommend you to have a blower style GPU. So for example, here we have the RTX 3090 Aero blower style GPU. And this will really make sure that even though there's like almost no space for the GPUs to breathe like a regular air intake from the double or triple vent GPUs, here the GPU will take in the fan, will take in the air differently and still blow out all the hotness, the heat out of the case. So, like I said, also on our P100 to 30, there's only the option to have 1 GPU, and also on the P100 series, there's also the option for 1 GPU. So if you're wondering about that, but there's also, because their system is like so slim. So for multi-GPUs, go for the X299. Now, we also have more than just software, because I mean hardware, because we also have software that's going to help you in your journey, and we really try to provide value here for you to be finished faster, to multitask even better, and that's why we have Creator Center. Now, just like with gaming, we have the Gaming Dragon Center, here we have the Creator Center. With Creator Center, we really give you the option to prioritize programs on top of each other. For example, if you're really working on Adobe Premiere Pro, most of the time you really need that to have the highest priority. You can do that in the software. So Adobe Premiere Pro will have all the resources to itself for it to finish its task the fastest. So here we really try to make it faster. And You know, of course, it's much more than just that, because with software, you can monitor, you can tap into your hardware specifications. I mean, for example, like speed or usage and stuff like that. You can do optimization, you can do per core. Also, you can allocate the cores for specific tasks or programs. So really a very all-in-one program for you to, you know, have a better experience when you're creating stuff and you want to multitask better. So here we have an example of what I mean. We have done a very extensive test with, for example, if you're multitasking, you have Adobe After Effects, it's rendering, Premiere Pro is exporting, you're playing 8K video, YouTube, blah, 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 there's tabs open. And when you are doing all of this without Creative Center, there's going to be a big difference as to when you're doing this with Creative Center having the appropriate settings. So let me just let it finish the test. So here, for example, oh, a little misclick. Going to the end result. So with Creative Center open, you see that with Adobe Premiere Pro getting all the priorities, it actually finished the task like more or less like twice as fast. And this is really what we mean with we're trying to provide you more value with the software. It's just not there. It's not just there. It really works. And here we have more examples as to what this is all going to do. For example, when you have the Creative Center activated with GPU acceleration, it's going to be even more efficient. So here, for example, with the Premiere Pro 2018 version, we have a 1 minute and 10 second video with of 3.3 gigabytes. With everything off, it's going to take 44 minutes to finish. Now, with Creative Center on, it's already tuned down to 24. It's more or less what you have just seen. Now, this test is in no way like biased, because every time we've done the test, we clear all the cache and delete the files and just really start clean. And if you're going to add GPU acceleration to this with NVIDIA's GeForce RTX Studio, it's going to be so much faster even. So you can achieve up to a 26 times better speed. Now, if you're more into the mobile kind of rendering and stuff like that, so we also have Creator laptops. So we have the Creator 17, for example, here with the best display you can get really with a true pixel, where the pixels are being individually steered. You can really have the best dynamic range also. So here you also have HDR 1000. Experience with all the goodies, like with all the professional monitors with Delta 2 and 100% DCI-P3 coverage. That's really, really high. On average, there's like about 95 or 98% coverage, but here you have 100% coverage. And it's also being professionally calibrated by Kalman, you know, out of the factory. And for this one, you also have the Creative 15 version, but the only difference, really big one, is that there you don't have the True Pixel Mini LED display. But the rest more or less sticking to the same settings. So if you're wondering about the specifications, here you can briefly go through the important ones with the CPU going up to i9, the latest one, 10th gen. Different displays will have different refresh rates, but they are all IPS. So here is for Creator 15. So if you have any questions, drop in the chat once again. And if I miss anything, I hope Eric jumped in and answered it for me. All right, seems like we're good. Cool. So, you know, there's so much stuff going on today, and I hope, you know, you guys really picked up a lot of stuff, and that I also helped you guys, you know, go into the right direction when you're starting content creation. And I believe before we finish the stream, we still have to draw a winner, right, for the grand old finale, which is the 10900K.
I was going to do another Steam.
Oh, Eric feels like there's you guys deserve more Steam codes. I don't objectify. No, I don't. I lost the words.
But this one.
So who is the next winner? Now we're talking about the Steam wallet code, okay? And the winner is Umption, I guess, right? So congratulations. get something nice in the Steam library, whether it's for content creation or even video games, but you know, that's up to you. And now we're going to draw the winner for the 10900K. So who is the lucky winner of today's CPU giveaway? And the random picking is busy. A little bit patient, guys. There's a little lag, but in between, you know, in the meantime, if you can think of any questions before we end the live stream, you can still drop them in chat, and hopefully we can pick it out if there are not too many. Okay, seems like we have the winner for the Core i9-10900K, and his name is Damien. Damien, you lucky bastard. Congratulations.
And he did it with the...
Oh, he did it with a loyalty bonus. That really helped out, guys. So like I mentioned earlier, you know, really got to make sure you check out the loyalty bonus, and the more you join, the more bonus you will have, and you can all exchange that in, well, next time to win something during the stream, because there's always something to be won in the MSI Insider live stream. So congratulations, Damien. We'll make sure to email you in the coming days, and to all of you also, to give you the Steam code and also ask for your shipping details, Damien, so we can get you your well-deserved CPU. All right, so guys, next week, make sure to tune in, because we have a surprise. We can't really say what it really is yet, because, you know, Eric already mentioned some NDA issues, so we're just launching to new heights with MSI. So next week, definitely make sure to tune in and see what it's all about, right? And guys, really thank you so much for your attention and for you know, joining the live stream. Really appreciate it. We had a really good time, and the chat was very fun to go through. There were a lot of comments. Really loved that. So keep it coming, guys, and make sure to tune in next week. So thank you for your time, and stay healthy.